This is the Game Changers Experience. Deep dive conversations with leading business disruptors, Olympic athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and influencers from around the world. This show will teach you insights about the winning principles in mindset, productivity, marketing, branding, entrepreneurship, business strategy, and more. Hosted by Productivity Authority, business strategist, former elite athlete, author, and public speaker, Adam Strong.
Hey guys, I'm super excited about being here. My name is Adam Strong. I am the founder of the Game Changers Experience. Firstly, I just want to say I'm so excited about being here, by the way. This is our first episode of the Game Changers Experience. And today I just kind of want to give you a little bit of insights about what our plans are for the Game Changers Experience and the show, and who we're going to be bringing on. What are some of the lessons that you're going to learn and things like that. So super excited about that. So I just want to say thank you so much for listening in today. Hopefully by the end of today, you'll go on and listen to the next episode and the next episode. And you know, by if you love what we do and you're a fan about what we do and who we share and the content, please leave a 5-star review at the end of this on whichever channel you're on, whether it be on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, whatever it might be. But I'd be super grateful if you could. That would be amazing. So, you know, it's interesting because I've always wanted to start up a podcast, if you like, all right? And I don't know where it had come from, right? Even though I've got I've written sort of a number of books, right? And you know, and everyone kind of said to me, you know, Adam, if you want to be an authority or you want to have credibility, you know, you've got to be an author. So, you know, I've done that. I've written the books and that kind of stuff. But what I really enjoy doing is I really enjoy doing this kind of thing, right? I really enjoy doing video. I really enjoy doing audio, and really kind of adding value in that way, shape or form. So, today it's interesting because when I was thinking about podcasts, right? Now this came off the back of a really good idea that I had not so long ago. We completed a massive summit called the Game Changer Summit. And essentially, depending on when you're listening to this podcast, of course, is, you know, this came back in a time where everyone was going through challenging times. And that was because of the whole kind of COVID-19 thing. And what it was is I started having conversations with clients that had thriving businesses. And most of those businesses were 6-figure businesses. And just kind of like overnight, it just literally just fell apart for most people. They went from thrive to survive. And I just kind of listened very attentively to think, and, you know, I was obviously adding value and trying to help these people. But, you know, I just thought to myself, you know, there must be more people out there that need my help. And then we created, and then I reached out to some people in my network and, you know, created the vision, which is all around serving people, helping people, very similar to the values that we have within, you know, the Game Changers Experience. And so I reached out to people like Jack Canfield. I reached out to people like Sharon Lechter, reached out to people like Chester Elton, Dr. John DeMartini, just to mention a few. And we had 30 of the world's leading industry authorities, you know, specializing in things like mindset, entrepreneurship, branding, marketing, social media, you know, pretty much you name it, you know, they were basically the tools that you need in order to grow and sustain a business, right? An entrepreneurial business. And it was really successful. Like it was interesting because it was a complete experiment, right? And for me, I'll tell you a little bit about it in a second. But for me, I just did it, right? I didn't think about it. I just did it. I knew that I had to help people. And the way that I could do that is just by, when I spoke to a lot of our speakers and a lot of our influencers, they loved the vision I wanted to create for people. And so because of the results and the success and the messages and transformations off the back of the summit, we ended up creating the Game Changers experience, because this is something that I really enjoy doing. Really love helping and adding value to people. And also, you know, really kind of, for me, what's important as well is collaborating with like-minded individuals, expert authorities, and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool. So one thing that I've learned in all of this process, because to me, this is kind of a process, right, is that there's no such thing as perfectionism. And, you know, it's interesting because one of the things that when I speak to entrepreneurs and business owners alike, okay, one of the things that holds them back is perfectionism. So you're always looking for an excuses such as, oh, it's not the right time. And it's not, you know, it's not the right industry. It's not this, it's not that. You know, I need to create it before I do it. I need to put all the pieces of the puzzle in one place. I need to do this. I need to do that. Right. And the thing is that there's no such thing as perfectionism. Okay. Throw it to one side, throw it out of the box, because there's no such thing as, because the thing is, if you want something so perfect, and I'll give you a really perfect example here, right? I think it was my second book. Fit Body, Fit Business. And I started writing the book, right? Put together a mind map, because basically it was an update of my first book. This was the updated version. And I think I was around 10% towards the end. And for some particular reason, I wanted to, it wasn't that procrastination kicked in, but I just couldn't get it finished because I was trying to think of new ideas and I wanted to perfect it and I want to sharpen it and I want to make it. But there's no such thing as perfection. And the thing is that I've known many business owners and entrepreneurs, authors, coaches, all of that kind of stuff, and speakers, is that they want the conditions to be perfect. They want everything to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. You just got to, if you're 80% happy with roll with it, okay? And then make changes as you go along. Otherwise, you could be, I've known many, and you know, depending on who's listening to this, if you are an author, for example, or you have something, or you have a project that you want to launch, right? And that perfectionism thing is holding you back right now. Do me a favor, just take action, right? Just take action, okay? Because the thing is that you could go on for months, if not years. I've known authors, speakers, and people that are working on projects that go on for many, many years, okay? And they never complete it. They never get things done because they want things to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfectionism. So guys, do whatever you do it today, all right? So I hope that kind of gives you that enthusiasm as such. But anyway, so what is the Game Changers experience all about? Well, let me just share you a little bit of a story about me and how I kind of got to the idea of the Game Changers experience. So what was I going to say? We'll start right from the beginning, actually. From the age of 11, I got into elite athletics, long distance running more specifically. And my favorite disciplines were actually between 10 kilometers and a half marathon. So that was kind of like my creme de la creme. I really enjoyed doing the long distance running and that kind of stuff, and the cross country running. I love all of that. And it's interesting because when I first started off running, okay, I mean, well, I remember when I first got to the athletics track, and so I used to live in a place called in West London, and I used to belong to an athletics club which doesn't exist anymore because they merged, called Hounslow, and Hounslow essentially they have an athletics track, and I remember turning up at the athletics track, but on my own, by the way. I didn't go with my parents or my mom or whatever it is, and I kind of made the jump as such, and kind of went to the what do they call it, the clubhouse, and I introduced myself and I say, hey, I'm here because I want to get into long distance running or whatever it is. And I remember the lady, she was like, oh, that's cool. Where's your parents? And I'm like, well, I'm here on my own. And I was at 11, right? And and she was like, so why do you want to get into running and things like that? And I was, at that age, I mean, I was going through some huge changes, right? I was bullied a lot actually, because I lost my hair through alopecia at the age of 9. Because of a bad childhood and stuff like that, which is a form of stress and worry, which is a common form of stress and worry. And by the way, if you're seeing my video as well of this, you'll also see that I'm still bald, by the way. I haven't grown any hair since the age of 11, which is a long time, but it doesn't bother me anymore. But at the age of 11, I used to get bullied so much. And so I got into athletics purely because I think it was my dad who kind of encouraged me to do so. But what did it do is it helped me build my confidence more than anything else, and it helped me build my confidence. More importantly, it helped me to kind of get into the zone, and so I learned a lot of skills at a very, very early age of elite athletics. I mean, when I started, right, I was an asthma sufferer. And I could barely run 200 meters without having an asthma attack. Okay. So, so when people say to me, hey, so I can't even run for a bus, right? Or I have suffered from asthma, I proved it, right? I was an asthma sufferer. And so it was interesting because when I started off, I was really bad, and obviously your confidence is still, I was really low in confidence anyway, so it didn't really bother me. But I was introduced to my first athletics coach, and his name was Alex McGee. Alex was Scottish, and back in the day of when he started his running career, obviously he had a lot of success. He surrounded himself with a lot of champions and stuff like that. But what I loved about Alex is that he turned normal people like me into champions, essentially. That's what I loved about him. And we had this kind of expectation, and he had a sort of a largest group of kids. And so it was interesting because I was kind of slightly older, and he was managing sort of kids between, I don't know, anything between sort of 8 and 14 years old. And so I was kind of in the middle. But I wasn't the type of child, the type of boy that was kind of jumping in, having conversations with people. I was interested in learning. I was interested in finding out how I could essentially be a better person. And this is where I actually met my my running partner as such, who is the current world and Olympic world champion, Mo Farah. And the thing with myself and Mo is that Mo was from Somalia originally, didn't speak particularly great English, and he was in low in confidence, and so was I. So we kind of shared some similarities in our story. But what was interesting about me and Mo is that we had, I so remember this because we used to train on Tuesday and Thursday, right? Tuesday and Thursday evenings, and then on Saturdays and Sundays we would compete. I didn't start competing for at least a year anyway until I started up, because I just didn't have I didn't really want to jump into it too quickly, but I knew competition was important. And then on the Tuesday and Thursday, especially in the wintertime, it would get sort of below minus temperatures. And all the other kids were at home, obviously playing their video games. And I love video games anyway, but I was out kind of for at least 2 hours on a Tuesday and Thursday evening in the cold weather in the winter, just running around a muddy field, right? And it was literally, there was a running track, which was floodlit, yeah. And we was on the back of the field, of the muddy field of where the running track was, hardly any lights. And it was pretty much pitch black, actually. But literally, we would just get into our zone. Me and Mo would just get into our zone, and we would, our coach would be like, "Okay, Adam and Mo, you need to go away, and this is what I need you to complete." And he would say, like, "I want you to do 10 laps of 400 meters, 600 meters, whatever it might be, okay, with X amount of recovery." So give us specific instructions, and we would just do it. We wouldn't argue. We would just go and do it, right? And it was through repetition. And through that repetition, I started getting little steps of success. I started getting a little bit better. And I guess my big motivation for me was always trying to beat my time. That was my real big thing. I was really into, I remember when I first started up 10K running, 10 kilometer running, I remember my first run, which was around 58 minutes or thereabouts. And then I was so determined to try to hit 50 minutes. And it took me ages to hit 50 minutes. And then it took even longer to get to the 40 minutes. And then it took even longer to get to 35 minutes. It's kind of crazy. So it was just kind of through repetition and through consistency and through perseverance, of all the kind of negative voices that went around in my head, thinking to myself, hey, so you can't do this, you can't do this. And I know that and of course I had those things going on in your head. And when you're going through those changes as well, with pressures at school and that kind of stuff, there's so many negative things and there's so much around you. But when you're in the zone, right? You're in the zone, you block out those distractions. One thing that I learned really, really quickly was blocking out distractions and just getting focused, becoming laser focused. And it was through that has helped me to take those skills from elite sport and bring it into entrepreneurship. So that's kind of cool. So that's kind of, I suppose, my first thing into how elite athletics. And that's how also, I suppose, the name of the Game Changers experience came about as well, because for me, taking what is a game changer, I suppose, in a way, a game changer is someone who shows up at the right time, right? They're an industry authority, they're an expert, they're an influencer. They're someone that is prepared to do what no one else is prepared to do, kind of thing, which means making short-term sacrifices for long-term benefit, which means, what else does it mean, actually? I mean, it means accountability, it means persistence, it means so many different things to so many different people, right? For me, I'm an action taker. I move at the speed of a Japanese speed bullet train, if I'm honest with you. But I am an action taker, and it's through those skills and attributes that I learned from a young age into entrepreneurship, and that's how it's got to me to this. I wouldn't say that I'm super successful, but I'd say that I'm on the road to moving on that way. So, but success is very subjective anyway, and it means different things to different people. So entwining elite sport into entrepreneurship. And that's what we're going to be talking about in the Game Changers experience. It's interesting because I know that one of the common questions that I often get asked actually is, how did I get into entrepreneurship, right? And it's interesting because I was having a really interesting conversation with an Olympic athlete, a gymnast actually, about yesterday. And in fact, I'm going to come back to that because that was such a great conversation. I'll share with you in a second. But how did I get into entrepreneurship? Well, when I grew up, I basically, it was me, my mom, and my brother. So we lived off the state. We didn't particularly have a huge amount of money. So everything was paid for essentially. And it was tough because a lot of people around us, a lot of the kids around us, they asked their parents, they would get it type of thing. But for us, when it came to Christmas time, we would end up sharing Christmas presents, things like, because there wasn't enough money to go around essentially, which wasn't a bad thing or whatever it is. But I was still a big video games. I remember opening my first video games machine, which was the Sega Master System, with Alex the Kid in Miracle World. I love that. Anyway, so how did I get into entrepreneurship? So where we lived in West London, there was actually a golf club not so far away called Donkey Woods. And it's a very strange name. I don't know where it's come from. But it was a golf club and there was a nature reserve. And essentially what I did is I kind of wanted to really help. I really wanted to help my mum, but I wanted to also earn a little bit of money, because I knew that if I had a little bit of money, then I'd be able to, purchase some different things or things that I wanted, because we never had pocket money. We never had that kind of thing and support systems and whatever it is. And so what I did is I came up with the idea of essentially I would go over to the local nature reserve, which was around 20-minute walk, take my bucket and my fishing net, by the way. And I used to go foraging and finding all of the golf balls that got lost from the golfers when they were playing, right? And so I would, sort of I would take my shoes and socks off, go in bare feet, jump into deep streams, dig out golf balls and things like that, forage with sticks through the bushes to look for golf balls as well, and stuff like that, really. And, some of the golf balls were, they were of different conditions. So you had like really good ones, you had really poor ones, and different, different types. You had like the Dunlop, you had the Nike, Slazenger. So those types of big names, they were a lot more expensive, right? I mean, some golf balls you would pay like up to £10 for a golf ball, which is around, I don't know, $13 US, which is a lot of money for a golf ball back in the day. And so I carry my bucket, right? I carry my bucket and my fishing net around, and some of the golfers would come up to me and they'd say, hey, so, I'd like to see what you've got in your bucket. And they'd obviously see all different types of colors of golf balls in different conditions. And they'd say, well, I'm a little bit low on supplies. Are you interested in selling your golf balls? I'm like, sure, no worries. And then we'd have this kind of sales negotiation, right? So one guy would say, well, I give you £3 for this, when I knew that this ball would cost £10. And I'd be like, well, not really. I mean, I'm looking for kind of more $4. And it'd be like, okay, $350 type of thing. And so we would do a deal on $350 and he'd give me cash. And so at the weekends, I'd go out, and then when I came back, I'd have I'd maybe made sort of 20, 30 quid just by selling golf balls. And this is where I started entrepreneurship and just by doing things like that, which is kind of cool. That's where I kind of started with entrepreneur. And whatever money that I made, I gave a small amount of it to my mum, to help with bread, milk, whatever it might be, and then put some in savings and keep the rest myself. So that's kind of where I started off with, really. And it's interesting. So I had a great conversation with an American gymnast yesterday, by the way, and he's going to be on the Game Changers Experience, and his name is Jonathan Horton. So you'll have to look out for his episode. And it's interesting. So he said to me yesterday, right? He said, "Hey, Adam." So he's now retired. Okay, so he's retired in his career, and he's been in sort of numerous Olympic Games, best of the best of the elite American gymnast. And he said to me, he said, especially with challenging times going on right now, I need to go find a job. And he said to me, he said, I want to test the theory of, you've got to do whatever it takes. But he said to me, he said, it doesn't matter what job you do, okay, because he's got like what I call a side hustle. And he's a speaker, so he's a motivational speaker. And because of the whole kind of challenging times right now, he can't do any speaking, only virtual speaking, so not sort of any face-to-face one. And he's got a various other couple of businesses. But again, so he's thinking to himself, you know what, I need to go find a job just to, to get things, support my family type of thing. And it's like, hey, so wouldn't it be really cool, even if you had a job at McDonald's and, to use the skills that we've learned, go to McDonald's and build up your career and essentially get a really successful career. And I said to him, I said, interestingly enough, Jonathan, but I've done that. And he was like, no way. He goes, yeah, I've tested that theory, right? So it doesn't matter where you are, where you're at. So at the age of 16, I started at McDonald's, and worked up, right, from the age of 16 through to 24. But in 5 years, I was running a restaurant which was turning over around 7-8 million pounds, selling 99 pence burgers, right? I was responsible for around 70, 80 staff, and that was like an accelerated, and he was like, no way. So that's kind of cool. But anyway, sorry, we're going off on a bit of a tangent, but I wanted to kind of share that. It's interesting because you can learn so many amazing skills from McDonald's and the great systems they have in place and the leadership programs. And don't worry about the food, because I know that people have their own, they have their own opinions about food, but the actual systems behind it is an actual dream. We're actually talking about that through the Game Changer Summit that we just did with Marianne Page, and she'd been working for McDonald's for 27 years, which is kind of cool. But it's all good. So anyway, what have we got coming up on the Game Changers Experience? So, the first couple of guests, we have a mixture. So the first guest we've got coming up is a guy called Bob Berg. Bob is an amazing guy. Bob is an influencer. He actually has 4 books, and his main book was The Go-Giver. which is I believe, a Wall Street best-selling book, okay, and Business Week book. It's fantastic, by the way. It's all around coming from a place of service, and what I love about Bob is just kind of, we share the same values, which is really, really good. And honestly, his interview, we cover so much great golden nuggets in his interviews, from things like how to build up relationships, why relationships are so important. He talks about how is it that you give value, what does value mean to people without it costing too much, things like that. So it was honestly fantastic interview with Bob. So feel free to connect with him. And our next episode we've got lined up is a guy who's also a Paralympian gold medalist as well. His name is called Neil Fachie. And Neil is a cyclist. He actually started off as a sprinter in the Beijing Olympic Games. And in 2012 London Olympics, he actually competed as a cyclist, where he won numerous gold medals in the Paralympics, which is fantastic. And honestly, seriously, we're going to be covering so much around I'm going to be asking him some really interesting questions in the interview. So we're going to be covering things like, what does it mean? What is the difference between winning silver and gold? So that's going to be a really interesting question. You're going to learn some great insights. We're going to talk about limiting beliefs. We're going to be talking a lot about some of the skills that he sees from a sporting perspective, and what can entrepreneurs and business owners do better from a productivity perspective and that kind of stuff. What can you learn from elite sport and bring it into your own business and entrepreneurship? So honestly, it's going to blow you away. Seriously, I've got some amazing guests lined up, and I'm so excited for you. Seriously, I'm so excited for you right now, because it's just going to be great, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I hope that you've enjoyed today's episode, by the way. I hope it gives you a little bit of an insight about me. Hope it gives you a little bit of insight about what the show's about. Hope it gives you a little bit of an insight about some of the guests that are coming up. And listen, if you are, it doesn't matter where you're at in your entrepreneurial journey or your business journey right now. This show is for everybody. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're an investor. It doesn't matter if you're a business owner. It doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter if you're in multi-level marketing. It doesn't matter if you're in cryptocurrencies. It doesn't matter if you're a startup company. I think that you're going to learn a lot of lessons from a lot of our speakers, including myself, and that kind of stuff. So I'm so excited for you guys. So listen, if you enjoyed this episode, again, feel free to do me a favor and put a 5-star review, depending on how you're listening to it, on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever it might be. I'd really appreciate that. And also, my big vision, by the way, is to help at least over 100,000 entrepreneurs in getting this amazing content out to people. So if you could share it to some of your friends or some of your contacts that you feel that might benefit from it, then I would be really appreciated, and really, really appreciate that. So guys, hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and hope that you enjoy the next episode. Please, straight off this, click onto the next episode, because I think you're going to absolutely love it, with Bob Berg, and we'll see you soon back on the Game Changers Experience. Take care. Bye-bye. Hey, you guys, I just want to say thank you so much for listening in to this episode of the Game Changers Experience. I hope that you got some amazing value, some great insights, and golden nuggets that you can implement into your business straight away. I would really, really appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star review on the button below. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.